The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zethkar's tentacles writhed in apparent distress. The crystalline being's voice resonated through the translation matrices of a dozen species, each more advanced than the primitive humans who had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. "The mission parameters are non-negotiable," Zethkar announced, his bioluminescent patches flickering with what seasoned diplomats recognized as barely contained panic. "We require a species willing to traverse the Nightmare Sector, establish communication with the Void Dwellers, and somehow convince them to cease their expansion toward our core worlds." A collective shudder rippled through the assembled representatives. The Kethmori, masters of dimensional folding, clicked their mandibles nervously. The ethereal Vashtai, beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form eons ago, dimmed noticeably. Even the warlike Grakthul, whose empire had conquered 17 star systems, shifted uncomfortably in their power armor. "The psychological profiles are disturbing," continued the Altarian delegate, her forearms gesturing at holographic displays showing twisted geometries and impossible structures. "Our best minds calculate a 97.3% probability of complete psychological breakdown within the first standard week of exposure to Void Dweller architecture. Alone." "The Nightmare Sector earned its name," added the Mechanarch representative, its mechanical voice unusually subdued. "Our most advanced AIs refuse to process the sensor data from that region. They classify it as incompatible with logical existence." At the far end of the chamber, in the section reserved for newer council members, two humans sat quietly. Adam Chen, a former asteroid miner turned diplomat, absently tapped his fingers against his datapad. Beside him, Dr. Mahin Rashid, xenobiologist and the human delegation's scientific advisor, reviewed the mission briefings with the sort of casual interest one might show a grocery list. "Perhaps," suggested the Etherian ambassador, his gaseous form swirling with hope, "we could attempt long-range communication? Avoid direct contact entirely?" "Impossible!" Zethkar's response crushed that hope instantly. "The Void Dwellers exist partially outside our dimensional framework. Direct physical presence is required for any meaningful exchange. The mission demands not just contact, but extended cohabitation to establish trust." The chamber erupted in concerned chittering, mechanical whirring, and various other sounds of alien distress. One by one, each species formally declined the mission. The Kethmori cited temporal stability concerns. The Vashtai claimed energetic incompatibility. The Grakthul, who had never backed down from a fight, simply stated tactical impossibility and left it at that. As the rejections mounted, Zethkar's bioluminescence grew dimmer. This was their last hope. The Void Dwellers' expansion would reach the outer colonies within 3 galactic cycles. Without intervention, billions would face an incomprehensible fate. "The humans have not yet responded," observed the Altarian delegate, her tone suggesting she expected another inevitable rejection. All attention turned to the modest human delegation. Adam looked up from his datapad with a slight frown, not of concern but of confusion. "Wait, that's it?" he asked, glancing between his notes and the assembled aliens. "You want us to go to this Nightmare Sector, meet some interdimensional beings, and convince them to stop expanding toward council space?" The chamber fell silent. Even the constant hum of life support systems seemed to pause. "That is correct," Zethkar replied slowly, his tentacles coiling with uncertainty. Mahin looked up from her own review, adjusting her glasses. "The environmental challenges seem manageable. Radiation levels are within acceptable parameters for our equipment. The psychological stressors," she paused, considering. "Well, humans have survived worse. We've lived through ice ages, plagues, world wars, and reality television. How bad could non-Euclidean architecture really be?" The previous expedition teams reported complete sensory breakdown, the Mechanarch interjected. "Beings with far more advanced psychological conditioning than humans." Adam shrugged. "Maybe that's the problem. Look, we humans have this thing where the more impossible something seems, the more stubborn we get about proving it can be done. You're talking about beings that exist partially outside normal dimensions? That's Tuesday for our theoretical physicists. Plus," Mahin added, warming to the topic, "human psychology is remarkably adaptable. We're persistence hunters by evolution. We don't give up, and we're social creatures. If these Void Dwellers are intelligent, Then communication is just a matter of finding common ground. The assembled aliens exchanged glances, clicks, and various other forms of nonverbal communication that roughly translated to, "Are these humans insane?" The mission timeline estimates 18 months minimum contact, Zethkar pressed. Potentially longer, in an environment that defies rational comprehension. So, extended camping trip in a weird place, Adam summarized. We've got people who voluntarily live in Antarctica and the Sahara Desert. Space stations, underwater habitats, that commune in Montana where they only communicate through interpretive dance. Humans will adapt. The Void Dwellers themselves are described as. The Altarian delegate struggled for words. Utterly alien, beyond current understanding of life as we know it. Maheen's eyes lit up with genuine excitement. Oh, that sounds fascinating. Do you have any preliminary biological data? Even basic observational notes would be invaluable for first contact protocols. The silence that followed was profound. Here were beings who had built civilizations spanning light years, who had mastered technologies that bent the fundamental forces of the universe to their will, and they were staring in awe at two humans who seemed genuinely enthusiastic about what they considered a suicide mission. "So," Adam said, breaking the silence, "when do we leave? And more importantly, what's the coffee situation going to be like? Because 18 months is a long time, and I'm not doing interdimensional diplomacy without proper caffeine support." Ambassador, Zethkar's bioluminescent patches began to glow brighter, what his species displayed when experiencing something akin to hope mixed with bewilderment. "You accept the mission?" "Sure," Adam replied. "Beats filling out quarterly reports." Maheen nodded enthusiastically. This could be the xenobiological discovery of the century, maybe several centuries. As the human delegation began discussing logistics with the enthusiasm of people planning a weekend hiking trip, the rest of the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something that would become legend throughout the galaxy. The moment an impossible mission became just another day at the Office for Humanity. 3 months later, as their specially equipped vessel disappeared into the Nightmare Sector, one Altarian diplomat was heard to mutter, "Either they're the bravest species in the galaxy, or the most insane." The mechanarch beside her replied with mechanical precision, "Analysis suggests both classifications may be accurate." Deep in the Nightmare Sector, Adam and Maheen were about to prove them right.